She was thrown away like garbage. The space station floated in silence, deep in the empty black of space. Cold metal walls echoed with nothing but the hum of old machines. Most lights had stopped working long ago. Dust floated in the air like slow snow. In one dark corner, behind broken wires and crates, a small figure sat with her knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was pale blue. Her eyes, wide and glowing faintly, stared at the floor. She looked about 10 years old. Her clothes were torn, and her bare feet were cut. She hadn't eaten in days. Her name was Kira. At least, that's what her mother used to call her. But now, no one called her anything. Her people had left her behind. Weeks ago, her alien race, called the Zerans, had lost a war against humans. When they ran, they destroyed everything. But they didn't kill Kira. They simply left her, like broken trash. She didn't understand why. She had done nothing wrong. She had never held a weapon. She was just a child. Now, she hid inside the empty station, scared to make a sound. The last time she made noise, rats came. The time before that, an old cleaning robot almost stepped on her. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the station. A distant bang. Kira froze. Her heart started beating fast. Was it her people coming back? Or something worse? Then came another sound. Boots. Heavy, slow, human boots. Someone was here. Kira crawled deeper into the shadows. She covered her mouth with her hands to stay quiet. Far away, a group of human soldiers entered the station. Their suits were marked with the Earth Unity symbol. They moved through the halls with their weapons ready, lights flashing on their helmets. "Looks empty," one of them said. "Old Zeran tech, completely shut down," another replied. But one of the soldiers stayed silent. He was tall, with a rough face and eyes that had seen too much war. His name was Sergeant Kyle. As the others searched the station, Kyle walked away, following a strange feeling in his gut. He had been in too many battles to ignore his instincts. He stepped into a dark hallway. It smelled like oil and rust. Then, he heard it. A soft cough. He turned, light from his helmet shining into the corner. And there she was, a small alien girl, dirty and shaking, with tears on her cheeks. She stared at him with wide, frightened eyes, her back pressed against the wall. Kyle raised his gun. His finger moved toward the trigger. But something stopped him. Those eyes, they weren't the eyes of an enemy. They were full of fear, pain, and something else, loneliness. The girl didn't run. She just looked at him, frozen like a statue. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then, Kyle slowly lowered his weapon. Behind him, a voice shouted, "Sergeant, did you find something?" He didn't reply. He kept staring at the girl. The girl looked at the gun in his hands, then looked up at his face. And then something strange happened. She reached out, not to attack, not to beg. She simply placed a small, trembling hand on her chest and whispered in a broken voice, "Kira." Kyle's breath caught. He wasn't sure what to do. He had killed many Zerans in battle. But this was just a child. "Kira," he repeated softly. She nodded, then coughed again. She was sick, weak, maybe dying. Kyle looked around, then made a decision. He opened a small side pocket in his suit, pulled out an energy bar, and gently slid it across the floor toward her. She stared at it, then at him. Slowly, she picked it up and took a small bite. Her hands shook. Kyle's team was calling him again, louder this time. He pressed a button on his wrist. "Found something," he said. "Just some broken tech. I'm heading back." He cut the signal before they could answer. Then he looked back at the girl. "Don't worry," he whispered. "You're not trash, not anymore." She didn't understand the words, but she felt something in his voice. Something warm. For the first time in weeks, Kira closed her eyes and felt safe. Outside the station, the human ship waited. Inside, two souls had just met, and nothing would ever be the same again. The soldier who didn't pull the trigger. Sergeant Kyle sat alone inside the ship's medical bay, his eyes fixed on the corner of the room. On the floor, wrapped in a thin silver blanket, lay the small alien girl, Kira. She was asleep now, curled up like a scared kitten. She hadn't said another word since she whispered her name. Kyle didn't know why he brought her. He just did. It had been 10 years since the war started, 10 years of fighting the Zerans, 10 years of pain, death, and blood. He had seen what their kind could do, what they had done. But this girl, she was different. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a threat. She was just a child, thrown away like garbage, left to die alone in the cold. Kyle looked at her small face. She had bruises on her neck, tiny scars on her arms. Her body was shaking, even in sleep, like she was still afraid. He sighed and leaned back in his seat. The door opened. Lieutenant Marks stepped in, boots clicking against the floor. He was younger, cleaner, and far more by the book. "You didn't report the find," Marks said, folding his arms. Kyle stayed silent. Marks looked at the girl. His eyes narrowed. "That's a Zeran. She's a child," Kyle replied without emotion. "She's their child," Marks said. "And you broke protocol by bringing her aboard. Command isn't going to like this." Kyle stood up slowly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. "If Command wants to throw her out the airlock, they can tell me to my face." Marks looked uncomfortable. He wasn't used to Kyle's tone. "We'll have to report it eventually." Kyle didn't reply. He looked back at Kira. Her breathing was shallow. She needed medical care, food, warmth, not arguments. Marks left without another word. That night, Kyle couldn't sleep. He sat outside the medbay, leaning against the wall. He remembered something from long ago. A planet they had landed on during the early war. A small village, full of civilians. One of them was a Zeran boy, maybe 5 years old. The boy had run toward Kyle with something in his hands. Someone behind Kyle shouted, "Weapon!" And without thinking, Kyle had fired. The boy dropped. The thing in his hands had been a toy. Kyle had never forgotten that face, or the guilt. Maybe that's why he couldn't leave Kira behind. Maybe he was tired of killing the wrong people. Maybe he wanted to save one life, even if it didn't erase the others. The next morning, Kira woke up slowly. Her eyes opened with a flinch, like she was used to being hit awake. But instead of pain, she saw something else. A warm bowl of food. Steam rising. Real food. Not trash, not cold pieces. A spoon beside it. She looked around. Kyle was sitting across the room, watching quietly. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just nodded toward the bowl. Kira looked at him, then the food, then back at him. Slowly, she picked up the spoon. The first bite was small. Then another. Then faster. Tears rolled down her face as she ate, not because it tasted bad, but because it had been so long since she tasted anything warm, since anyone gave her something without asking for pain in return. Kyle watched in silence. He didn't smile, but something in his chest softened. Later, Kira sat by the window, watching stars move past the ship. Her eyes reflected the light. Kyle approached and handed her a small device, a translator, basic level. She looked at it with confusion. He pointed at himself. "Kyle." She tilted her head. He tried again. "My name is Kyle." She hesitated, then pressed the device. "Kyle," it repeated in her voice. She smiled, just a little. He pointed at her. She blinked, then slowly said, "Kira." The device echoed it. Kira. A simple moment, but something inside both of them changed. They had names now. They were no longer strangers. They were something more. Later that day, The ship received a message from Earth Command. Routine update. Orders for return. But hidden in the data, something strange appeared. A file had been auto-triggered by the ship's scanners. The file contained an old symbol, one that was drawn in the dust of the station by Kira. Kyle stared at the screen. The symbol was not just random. It belonged to a long-lost alien language, a warning symbol. It meant, key to the gate. But the gate to what? Power. Destruction. Something worse. Kira sat silently behind him. She was staring at the same screen, and her body had gone still. Kyle turned to her. "What is it?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. But her eyes were filled with fear. And far away, in the darkest part of space, something had noticed. Something was waking up. Because now, it knew. The key had survived. What is she hiding? Kira had not spoken a word in 3 days. She sat quietly in the corner of the medbay, her back against the wall, legs pulled up to her chest. Her large eyes stared at nothing, or maybe at everything. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just watched. Sergeant Kyle checked in on her every few hours. He brought her food, water, and sometimes tried simple words through the translator. But she rarely responded. Except once. That morning, Kyle gave her a small flat pad, a touchscreen device used for training. "You can draw," he said gently. "Anything you want." Kira blinked, then looked at the screen. Her fingers were thin and shaky, but she reached out and began to swipe slowly. Kyle watched, saying nothing. She didn't draw shapes. She drew symbols. Not human, not modern, but ancient. Carefully, one by one, her hand moved across the screen. Lines, curves, spirals. Connected perfectly. Then she stopped. She looked up at Kyle. Her face was calm, but her eyes were asking a question. "Do you understand?" Kyle didn't. Not yet. But deep down, he knew. Those symbols meant something. Something dangerous. Elsewhere on the ship, Lieutenant Marks paced inside the communication room. He wasn't happy. "She hasn't spoken. She hasn't done anything useful. Why is she still here?" He snapped. "We're not at war with children," Kyle replied flatly. "Zerans use children," Marks shot back. "She could be a spy, a bomb, a trap. You saw the data. That symbol she drew. Earth Command flagged it. Top-level clearance only. That's not normal." Kyle stayed silent. "Let me take her to interrogation," Marks continued. "We'll ask questions. Real ones." Kyle stepped forward, his voice like cold steel. "If you touch her, I'll break your arm." There was a long pause. Marks backed off, but his eyes were full of warning. "You're making a mistake, Sergeant." Kyle didn't answer. He turned and walked away. Back in the medbay, Kira was sitting near the window again. Her small fingers tapped the glass as she watched stars pass by. Kyle sat beside her, holding the tablet with her drawings. "You drew these before," he said. "What do they mean?" Kira didn't move. "Are they maps? Warnings? Language?" Still silence. He sighed. "I want to help you, Kira, but I can't protect you from everything unless you help me understand." Kira turned her head slightly. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched the tablet again. She drew a shape, a circle. Then inside it, a small mark, like a flame. She pointed to herself, then to the flame, then to the word on the translator, key. Kyle's blood ran cold. "You are the key," he whispered. Kira nodded, just once. He leaned closer. "Key to what?" She hesitated. Then, for the first time, she used the translator with full intent. Her voice came through, quiet and mechanical. "To the gate. The end gate." Kyle's heart pounded. He had heard stories, old myths from deep space, ancient weapons hidden by dying races. A gate that opened to nothing but destruction. He had never believed them. Until now. That night, while Kyle reviewed the recordings of her symbols, the ship shook. Lights flickered. Emergency alarms rang out. Unidentified signal approaching. The AI warned. Kyle rushed to the bridge. A dark shape appeared on the scanner. Not large like a fleet, but small, fast, and hidden under deep space noise, almost like it had been cloaked. The object hovered just outside sensor range. No ID, no signal, no broadcast. Then it sent a single message. Return the girl, or we come for her. The crew looked at Kyle. He looked at the screen, and behind him, Kira had appeared silently. Her eyes were fixed on the message. Kyle turned. Do you know who that is? She nodded. One of them. Kyle swallowed hard. One of who? She looked up at him, her voice low. Hunters. From my world. They clean mistakes. Kyle stared at her. You mean, they're coming to kill you? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes told the truth. That night, Kyle sat in his room, watching old war files. He watched what the Zerans had done to human colonies, how many lives were lost. He remembered why the war started. But then, he remembered her face. Scared, small, brave. She wasn't the enemy. She was the one they left behind. The one they feared. The one they wanted erased. And now he knew why. Because she wasn't just a child. She was the last key to something ancient, something even her people didn't want found. And Kyle. Kyle had just sworn to protect her, even if it meant war. In the shadows of deep space, a small alien craft powered up its weapons. Inside, dark figures prepared for boarding. Silent, cold, and all of them had one order. Find the girl. Kill the human. Close the gate. Enemy of her own kind. The alien ship hovered silently behind the shadows of a dying moon. No lights. No sound. No signals. Inside, a single figure moved through the dark. Tall, armored, and terrifyingly calm. His skin was black-gray, his eyes like burning stars. His name was Varric, and he was not a soldier. He was a hunter, and his mission was clear. Retrieve the child, erase the mistake, burn anything that stands in the way. On board the human ship, Kyle stared at the warning message again. Return the girl, or we come for her. No name, no sender, just the promise of death. He paced the bridge, trying to make sense of it all. Kira sat nearby, silent, her knees pulled to her chest again. She had not spoken since she named the hunters. Kyle leaned over her gently. Who is Varric? She didn't look up, but her lips moved slowly. The translator spoke her words. He is death. Kyle's jaw tightened. I need more than that, kid. Kira took a breath. Then her voice came again. Not through the translator, but her own. Broken, soft, but full of pain. He kills the forgotten ones, the failed ones, like me. Kyle's heart sank. Why? He asked. She looked at him with wide, glassy eyes. Because we remember. That night, Kyle gathered the crew. Tension filled the air like smoke. Marks was the first to speak. I told you she was dangerous. Now one of them is coming. Kyle replied calmly. One Zaran hunter doesn't scare me. It should, said the ship's eye voice suddenly. Matching signals. Confirms the hunter's ID. Unit. Varric 7. Class. High threat. Last seen in the Andros War. Survived 2 nukes. No known weaknesses. The room fell silent. Marks looked around. We're not a warship, Kyle. We're just scouts. If this thing boards us, we're all dead. Kyle looked at Kira. She was watching quietly, like she had already accepted her fate. We leave her behind. Marks added coldly. That's the smart move. Kyle stood up slowly. You want smart? Fine. But I don't throw kids to wolves. Not now. Not ever. Mark stared at him. So we all died because you got feelings? No, Kyle said, walking toward the exit. We all live because we fight harder. Later, Kyle found Kira alone in the observation bay, her face lit by distant stars. He sat beside her, resting his back against the cold wall. Tell me, he said quietly, what did you do? What are you really? Kira didn't answer right away. Then she began to speak, not with the translator, but in her own quiet voice. I was born in the core city. We were the first children after the gate opened. The gate? Kyle asked. She nodded. Our leaders said it would give us power. It did, but not what we wanted. What did it give? Kira looked at her hands. Voices. Visions. We saw things before they happened. We heard whispers from other stars. The elders were afraid. They said we were broken, tainted. She looked up at Kyle, eyes shining with memory. They started calling us the soul burned. Kyle felt a chill. Kira went on. One by one, we disappeared, sent away, hunted. The others are all gone now. I'm the last. Kyle swallowed hard. You're saying your people made you this way, then tried to destroy you for it? She nodded. And now they've sent Varric to finish it. Meanwhile, outside the ship, Varric moved. Silent. Fast. Like a shadow through space, he reached the human ship without detection. And then he entered. Not through doors. Through the walls. A sharp, humming blade sliced through steel like paper. No alarms triggered. No sensors caught him. He was already inside. Kyle was in the engine room when it happened. Screams on the radio. Shots fired. Something's here, a voice cried. Then silence. Only static. Kyle grabbed his weapon and ran. He reached the corridor to find two guards down. No blood. Just gone. Like they were never there. A mark was left on the wall, burned deep into the metal. A symbol. Not Zeran language. Not human. A mark of judgment. The same symbol Kira had drawn days ago. Kyle's grip on his weapon tightened. He turned and ran toward her. In the medbay, Kira stood facing the door. She was waiting. And she wasn't scared. Not anymore. The lights flickered once. Then he appeared. Tall. Silent. Cloaked in black armor. Varric. His voice was like wind across bones. You do not belong among them, child. Kira stared at him. They didn't leave me behind. You did. You were born wrong, he said coldly. You see things that were never meant to be seen. I see truth, she whispered. That is why you must die. He raised his arm. A blade folded out, glowing red. But before he could strike, boom! A blast hit him from behind. Kyle stood in the doorway, smoke rising from his gun. Step away from my kid, he growled. Varric turned slowly. And for the first time in years, Kyle faced something he truly feared. But he didn't run. Because behind him was Kira, and she was finally ready to stop running too. The battle had just begun. A soldier with nothing left to lose. A child hunted by her own blood. A killer who never failed a mission. And somewhere out there, the end gate was opening. Whether for hope or for destruction, no one knew yet. But one thing was certain. The girl was no longer worthless. She was everything. One man stands between her and death. Smoke filled the narrow hallway. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed in red flashes. Kyle stood between Kira and the monster that had come to take her. Varric, the Zeran hunter, barely flinched after the blast. His armor had scorched black, but he still stood tall, motionless, staring down the man who dared to fight him. You are human, Varric said, his voice calm and deep like thunder. You are not her protector. Kyle stepped forward slowly. You're wrong. Varric tilted his head, almost curious. Why die for something you don't understand? Kyle's voice didn't shake. Because someone has to. And with that, he raised his weapon and fired again. A stream of energy shot across the hallway. Varric moved, too fast. He vanished into the smoke, then reappeared behind Kyle. But Kyle was ready this time. He ducked, rolled, and shielded Kira with his body. Varric's blade scraped the metal just inches away. Then the ship's AI triggered a blast shield between them, cutting the hallway in two. For now, the monster was locked out. Kyle looked down at Kira. "Are you okay?" She nodded. Her hand gripped his jacket tightly. But her eyes weren't afraid anymore. They were focused. The rest of the crew was in chaos. Lieutenant Marks was barking orders. "Get that thing off the ship. Lock down all decks. We've already lost 6, a soldier shouted. "He's moving through walls. We can't track him." "He's here for the girl," Marks hissed. "We give her to him, he leaves. It's that simple." The room fell silent, until one voice replied through the comms. "You do that. And I swear I'll come for you myself." It was Kyle. Everyone froze. Marks clenched his fists. "He's lost it." "No," whispered one of the younger soldiers. "He's doing what's right." Kyle guided Kira through the maintenance shafts, narrow and dusty, hiding her from the scanners. They crawled in silence, lit only by Kyle's small wrist lamp. Kira finally spoke. "You can't fight him." Kyle looked back. "Maybe not, but I can keep you alive." "Why?" she asked. "I'm not human." Kyle paused. Then softly, "You're not my enemy. That's enough." Kira didn't reply. But a strange warmth loomed in her chest, a feeling she didn't recognize. Not fear, not guilt, but something close to being seen. They reached the ship's old storage bay. Kyle used it as a hiding spot. It hadn't been touched in years. Kira sat on a crate, knees swinging. "You should leave me. He'll stop if I go." Kyle crouched beside her. "You don't know that." "I was made to open the gate," she whispered. "I don't know what it does, but they're afraid of it." Kyle narrowed his eyes. "So why are they hunting you?" She looked down. "Because I'm not afraid of it." He watched her closely. She continued. "When I was little, they said I could see the past and the future. But the more I saw, the more they locked me away. They said I was broken, dangerous. But I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just saw the truth." Kyle sat back slowly. "You remember things from before the war?" She nodded. "Before the war, before time. I see stars that don't exist yet. I hear songs from dead galaxies." He blinked. "That's not broken." "No," she whispered. "That's why they're afraid." Outside the storage bay, something moved. A soft clang. Then silence. Kyle raised his gun. "Kira, get behind the crates." She obeyed. The door slid open with a hiss. But it wasn't Varric. It was Marks. And he wasn't alone. 3 soldiers stood behind him, weapons drawn. Kyle aimed. "Back off." Marks stepped forward, hands up. "We're not here to fight." "Then why the guns?" "I don't trust that thing you're hiding," Marks said. "But I trust you." Kyle lowered his weapon slightly. Marks continued. "I saw the security footage. That hunter, he didn't kill you when he had the chance. He didn't even try to finish the job. That means one thing." "What?" Kyle asked. "He's not here to kill her," Marks said. "Not yet. He's waiting." "Waiting for what?" Marks looked at Kira, then at Kyle. "For her to open the gate." That night, Kyle sat alone, watching Kira sleep. She looked peaceful for once, like a real child. But he knew peace wouldn't last. He opened his comm. "Earth Command. This is Sergeant Kyle Reeve. I have urgent intel. The girl we rescued is not just a survivor. She is a key, a living key. And someone is coming to use her to open something ancient, something dangerous. He paused, then added, "And if we don't protect her, they won't just kill her. They'll erase her soul." He ended the transmission. Behind him, Kira stirred. "Kyle," she said softly. "Yeah, I had a dream." "About what?" She sat up, eyes distant. "You were standing in fire. The stars were falling. But you didn't move. You stayed." Kyle looked at her. Was that a memory? Kira shook her head. "No, that hasn't happened yet." She looked up at him. "But it will." Far away, the hunter watched through the ship's outer hull. He could wait. He had waited years. But now, the soul-burned girl was no longer hiding. And the human was standing in front of her. That made him a threat. And threats were meant to be erased. The stars above them began to flicker. Space around the ship trembled. The gate was waking. And only one man stood between it and the end. Not a god. Not a weapon. Just a soldier, fighting for a child's soul. The fight for her soul begins. Earth Command didn't believe Kyle at first. A lost alien child with visions of the future. A mysterious gate that could destroy stars. They called it field stress. Said he was unstable. Said he'd been too long in deep space. But then the signal came. Not from Kyle. From the gate itself. A pulse. Faint. Ancient. Repeating in waves across the galaxy. And in the center of it, the same symbol Kira had drawn. Key to the end gate. Now, they were listening. But they might be listening too late. On the edge of the solar system, the gate began to awaken. No one had seen it before. Not even the oldest alien records remembered where it was. But Kira knew. She felt it. It wasn't just waking. It was calling her. Inside the human scout ship, tension was boiling. Kira sat in the medbay, hooked to scanners. Not because she was sick, but because something in her body had changed. Her blood was glowing. Literally glowing. Microscopic energy pulses moved through her veins. Her cells had begun to evolve. Her brain waves were now transmitting data even the ship's AI couldn't decode. "She's becoming something else," said the doctor, nervously checking the screen. "Or maybe, becoming what she was always meant to be." Kyle sat beside her, holding her hand. She looked up at him. "I feel full of light, but it hurts." He nodded. "You don't have to carry it alone." She squeezed his fingers gently. "I don't feel alone anymore." Lieutenant Marks entered the room. He looked at Kyle, then at Kira. "I've been assigned new orders," he said quietly. "Command wants her transferred to a research vessel." Kyle stood. "That's not happening. They say it's for protection." Kyle stepped closer. "She's not a science project. She's not a weapon. She's a kid." Marks didn't argue. He just whispered, "Then we need to protect her, from both sides." Kyle narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Marks handed him a datapad. "We just intercepted a message. Zarin Command knows she's alive, and they're sending more than just a hunter." Kyle read the screen. 3 words appeared. "Recover the key." And beneath that, coordinates. Earth. Kyle met with Kira alone in the quiet dark of the observation deck. She looked out at the stars, her small body wrapped in a blanket. "I dreamed again," she said softly. "Yeah?" Kyle asked. "I saw fire in the sky. Cities falling. People screaming." He said nothing. She looked up at him. "But I also saw a wall. A shield. It wasn't made of stone or metal." "What was it made of?" She smiled weakly. "You." Kyle swallowed hard. "We won't let it happen." She turned to him, more serious now. "The gate doesn't just destroy. It gives a choice." He blinked. "What kind of choice?" Kira placed her hand over her heart. "It looks inside. Finds what you are. What you hide." Kyle whispered, "And if it doesn't like what it finds?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. 3 days later, The ship reached the outer line of Earth's defense fleet. The stars behind them were empty. The gate signal was growing stronger, and something else was coming with it. The Ziran fleet, not large, but fast, and led by Varric. Earth Command gave the order: secure the girl. Prepare for evacuation if needed. Kyle stood between Kira and the boarding team again. But this time, something had changed. Kira stepped forward. She wasn't hiding anymore. "I'll go," she said. Kyle turned. "No. I have to," she whispered. "They'll keep coming. They'll never stop. Not until I face the gate myself." Kyle shook his head. "You're just a kid." She looked into his eyes, and for a moment, he saw something ancient in her gaze. Strength, wisdom, fire. "I was just a kid," she said. "Not anymore." They agreed to one plan. Kira would be escorted to the gate on a controlled ship. Kyle would go with her. But Earth Command had a secret backup, a failsafe. If the gate activated, if the energy spike became too high, the order was simple: destroy the ship, kill the key, close the gate. No matter the cost. Kyle didn't know, but Kira did. She had already seen it. As the ship flew through the outer edge of the system, the gate finally came into view. It was not made of metal. It was not a machine. It was a structure of light and shadow, swirling like a storm frozen in time, a living wound in space. The moment Kira saw it, she gasped. "It remembers me," she said. Kyle gripped her shoulder. "You don't have to do this." "I do," she whispered, "but I don't have to do it alone." She stepped forward, and the gate opened. Suddenly, pain hit her like a wave. She screamed, not in fear, but in pure energy overload. Visions filled her mind. Millions of lives. War, love, betrayal, Earth burning, Earth healing. Kyle's face, her own face, older, stronger, standing between two worlds. The gate showed her everything, and then asked her one question: "What are you?" She looked deep inside, and answered, "I am hope." Far behind them, Varric's ship powered up a cannon. Earth's fleet responded. The battle was moments away. But inside the gate, something shifted. Kira's body lifted from the ground. A soft golden light surrounded her. And the gate, for the first time in history, began to close. Not with war, but with choice, with will, with her. Back on the bridge, Kyle watched in awe. Marks whispered, "Is she doing this?" Kyle nodded slowly. "She's fighting for her soul. And maybe, for ours too." The gate flickered once more. Then, silence. Was it closed? Was it stable? No one could tell. Only one thing was clear. Kira had stepped beyond the known world. And Kyle would follow her into it, even if it cost him everything. Humanity fights for one soul. The gate had closed. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. It hovered in space now, silent, glowing faintly, its spiral light patterns frozen like a storm paused mid-spin. No explosions, no attacks, just silence. But silence wasn't peace. Silence was waiting. And waiting could mean anything. On board the escort vessel, Kyle stood beside the viewing window, staring at the strange beauty of the gate. Behind him, machines beeped, voices whispered, tension filled the air like fog. Kira hadn't woken up in 3 hours. She was still inside the containment chamber, floating slightly, surrounded by golden pulses of energy that flickered gently through her veins. She looked peaceful, but the room around her told another story. Every system was running hot. Power spikes, memory loops, unknown data flooding the ship's network. The gate had touched her mind, and now it wouldn't let go. Kyle stepped into the chamber quietly. She was still unconscious. Her skin now looked almost translucent, glowing faintly under the surface. Not in a painful way, more like she had become part of something larger, something cosmic. He sat beside her bed and took her small hand into his own. "You're stronger than this," he whispered. "You've made it this far." Silence. He smiled faintly. "I didn't believe in anything before you. Not in peace, not in second chances. Just war. Just survival. But you changed that." Her hand twitched gently. "You changed me." Earth Command was in full alert mode. The gate had stopped reacting, but the data it sent back was beyond anything ever recorded. A living map, ancient languages, blueprints for unknown technology, visions of possible futures, some beautiful, some terrifying. But the gate only gave access to one soul, Kira, and now the highest levels of Earth were divided. Some wanted to protect her. Others wanted to control her. On the other side of the gate, in deep hidden space, the Zeran fleet began to move. They had stayed silent long enough. Varek had failed. Now their leaders would not. They launched a fleet toward Earth, small, fast, precise. Their goal wasn't war. It was erasure. They didn't want power. They wanted silence. They wanted the gate gone, and the girl with it. On board the escort ship, alarms rang out. "Incoming hostiles," the AI announced. "Zeran units, 7 confirmed. Arrival in 10 minutes. Kyle didn't hesitate. He stormed into the control room. "Wake her." The medic looked panicked. "We can't. She's connected to the gate's neural stream. If we break the sync, she'll die," Mark said grimly. Stepping in, Kyle turned to him. "And if we don't, they'll kill her." Marks nodded. "Then we fight." Earth sent backup. 2 ships. Not much, but enough to stall. Enough to hold the line. Enough to say, "We don't give up our own." Inside the chamber, something changed. Kira's eyes opened. She blinked slowly, like seeing for the first time. But her voice wasn't afraid. It was calm. "They're here." Kyle nodded. "We're going to stop them." "No," she said softly, looking at him. "I am." The lights around her pulsed brighter. The energy wrapped around her body gently, like armor made of memory and light. Then she stepped out of the chamber. Her feet touched the floor, and the gate pulsed again. The battle started above the ship. Fast. Brutal. Zeran ships hit Earth vessels hard. Precision strikes. Advanced weapons. One human ship was already gone. But they held. Kyle stood on the observation deck as explosions lit up the sky. He turned to Kira. "You don't have to do this." She smiled, that small, honest smile he'd seen only once before. "I was never meant to run." Kira stepped onto the bridge. The crew backed away, stunned, not because they were afraid, but because they could feel her. Not just see her, feel her presence like heat in winter. She raised her hand slowly. The gate responded. It opened, but not like before. This time, it unfolded peacefully. A doorway, a path, a choice. The Zeran ships froze. Literally. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Even the crew on board felt it. Felt her. She wasn't just the key now. She was balance. Not death. Not destruction. But potential. And she gave them one last offer. A message broadcast from her mind to every ship. You erased me. You feared me. You threw me away. But I still see you. I still feel you. And I still offer peace. If you walk away, I will not follow. But if you strike again, her voice grew sharp, not angry, but true. I will end you. The Zeran fleet hesitated. Then, they turned. One by one, they left. No more war. No more chase. Just silence. And space. Later, Kyle found her in the garden deck, where artificial trees and flowers grew in peace. She was sitting on the grass barefoot, watching digital butterflies blink into the air. You did it, he said softly. No, she replied. We did. He smiled. So what now? She looked up at the stars. I learn. I grow. I live. And the gate? He asked. She touched her chest gently. It's part of me now. But it won't open again unless I want it to. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Do you want it to? She smiled. Not today. He sat beside her. The stars above were quiet. For now, at least. And in that peace, a broken soldier and a once-forgotten girl found something worth saving. Each other. She was abandoned, erased, hunted. But in the end, one man stood for her. And because of him, she chose to stand for all of us.